y'all, welcome back to Mira's Maze. As always, I'm Mira and I am back with my review for the third episode of the 37th season of the challenge. I got my notes, we got our show, and we just gonna dive right on into it. So we pick up this week right where we left off. Tori now has a new partner in Ed, and she is actually very appreciative of it. He is proven to be very positive energy wise, and he has now proven himself in elimination. So she is glad to have been chosen by him as a partner. Then we have Fessy, who is talking to Big T. He goes ahead and admits, like, yes, we had to get Kels up out of here. He essentially saw him as a threat because he was one of the bigger rookies, so they did what needed to be done to get him on out the house. Big T is slowly realizing, because she had nothing to do with the plan, she doesn't really know what the vets' decisions are made, what the decisions the vets are making, and she realizes she is at the bottom of the alliance. And in the confessional, we hear Corey talking, and he says basically, Big T is in this position because she just gets along too well with the rookies. And that's always the game that Big T plays, though. She's always very neutral. She's always really cool with the newcomers, with the vet. She's always cool. Whatever the case is, she's usually pretty even and goes along with everyone. But I guess that's hurting her game this time around. Corey L is discussing how he is afraid that he is on an uphill battle and that he will continuously just get thrown in by default at this point. And as we're going to see later on this episode, that kind of is what basically is happening. So then we get to the challenge this week, and they have to jump off this little cliff and swim over to these little bombs and bring them back to shore. Just a whole lot of some things I wouldn't be doing, but more power to these people. Now, Ashley's partner Huey is me. He's freaking out before he even hits the water, honey. He's about to throw up. As he should, because these challenges be doing the most sometimes, and it'd be a lot. So, but he ended up getting in, and he did what needed to be done out of survival, honey. He let that be known. Once I got in that water, I started swimming like a fish because the goal was to get out of this water. So he did what he needs to be done, and he even came up before Ashley. So there you have it. Tori competes against Michelle, and she's kind of watching her, and then she sees how she finishes and how she fights, even when she started bleeding and whatnot. And it was at that moment she was like, I gotta get this bitch out of the house. She knew. Then we have CT, and his ass was all out, they blurred it out and whatnot, and I'm just like, y'all didn't have to do that. Y'all didn't necessarily have to blur that out. I'm just saying, did we want that? I don't know. Maybe y'all wanted that. I don't know. I'm just saying. Then poor Tommy, honey, he was all the way out. Like, he might as well have went skinny dip, and that boy was naked. Like, when they got back, they was joking with CT, and he showed his ass again. I'm like, why can't we? No, I'm just playing. But as it turns out, and then somebody made the joke too. They was like, that wasn't fur. He was playing with his third leg, talking about Tommy, and I was just dead. Like, that boy got wore out in that fucking water. But he ended up actually getting hurt, and he was like physically throwing up and everything. So they are going to have to go get him medical attention because that boy was throwing up. Then we have Tasha. It's not like Tasha, it's Tasha, because it's like matcha, but Tasha. Okay. And Jeremiah, and they are both struggling, honey. She's trying to hold on to him. He's like, girl, I gotta try to breathe. I gotta try to swim my damn self. You pulling me down. Like, they are struggling. They are on the sides, hanging on. Corey's just looking over, laughing, like, and essentially they had to get like rescued, like, because I don't even think they finished. They didn't. They came and got them one by one and just said, come on, babies, just go ahead and get out the water. Then we have Ed and Tori, who ended up winning. And now that Tori has some power this week, Big T is immediately shooketh. And at first I didn't understand why, because she's a vet and we keeping our vets safe. But then we got a quick little recap and remembered that last season, Big T made the decision to throw Tori in against Anissa, which was problematic because they was best friends, and also that's the challenge that Tori ended up getting sent home. So that's a double homicide that Tori, might have it out for Miss Ma'am. So immediately when they get back to the house, they get to Big T gets to politic and like, what can I do to get myself out of this situation? The vets and the rookies are even at this point because it's 14 and 14. But Devin is trying to sway Tori away from throwing in any vets at this moment, and he's saying maybe Emmanuel, because he been sitting back and he been peeping Emmanuel's game, and he's like, even though he don't talk a lot, he's a quiet assassin. He be watching them and he be seeing he might come in third, but he's still coming, and he's playing it low key. So Devin's peeping game. Then he said Berna because he don't like Berna. She annoys him. Plus he sees how her and Nelson is gonna play against the vets because of the Ashley and Nelson situation. So he wants to dead that. And I'm like, Devin, you smart. You smart. You be having your moments. You be having your moments. And then somebody else he said, but yeah, he was just throwing out different options because he just don't want her to start trying to make different moves too soon. And then Tommy returns to the house, and we actually find out that he is medically disqualified because he ended up having a concussion. I'm like, poor little thing. He really got his ass wore out in that water, like real deal. So then we get to the elimination deliberation. Ooh, that was a little tongue to elimination deliberation. I said it though. So Jeremiah says, just don't pick me. Like, I mean, I don't really have that much to say for myself, but if you pick me, I'm coming back. So just have that in mind. And then Devin says, well, you know, when people say that, I always have the question to ask, well, if not you, then who? And Tasha ends up saying, well, Coriel and Michelle. And basically, I got where she was coming from. She was only saying their names because they've been tossed in so many times already. So it's like, why not? It's kind of a no-brainer. That's like a default thing. But I kind of wish she would have just played the low-key and not said nothing. I mean, honestly, because of how poorly they performed in this challenge, I kind of thought that her and Jeremiah was going in anyway. But I just think she really didn't help herself when she started throwing out Michelle and Coriel. But so yeah, so essentially her and Jeremiah did end up getting thrown in. So there's a moment where there's like some silence and everybody's like, you know, if you think you're safe in this house, that's probably when you're the least safe. So if you got something to say or if you want to speak on your behalf, like now is the time to do it. Y'all should probably get it done. Everybody's expecting Big T to say something because they want her to just go ahead and clear the air. Who is she more loyal to or whatever? But Big T basically just feels cornered, and she's like, she don't feel like she should be having to defend herself right now. Directly after the meeting, she ends up pulling Tori to the side, and then Cal ends up being there too. And I'm like, Cal. But he was making some points in there, so he served his purpose being there. But what got me was when they were discussing it, Tori was like, you know, if I do decide to throw you in, it won't be because of revenge. It's just because it makes the most sense. I don't really have a reason to say nobody else's name. You don't have a reason to say nobody's name, period. These rookies y'all been throwing in, y'all don't really have a reason to say their name other than they rookies been y'all getting done. So if you want to throw her in out of revenge, just say that because you lying. So yeah, I didn't get that. Then right afterwards, she goes to Jeremiah and Tasha, and I don't know why that's so hard for me because I just want to say Tasha, but I don't understand why she asked them who they wanted as if she would really give them who they want. Like, nobody ever gives the people who they want unless it's definitely going to benefit them. So it really didn't make sense for her to go in there making that type of promise. I mean, she said she would do what she can, but it's like, when you even come up to me like that, I'ma just expect that you're gonna give me what I want. But she knew she wasn't gonna do that. So Tori just be doing shit sometimes. Like, just sit down. So when they finally get to the elimination at the end of the night, Tori did a little fake jump. You know, she made it seem like with the little speech she was giving, she was about to throw in Big T, but she ended up doing Berna, and Ed backed her, and then they had to choose a boy, and they chose Coriel, and Ed is like, it ends up being a women's challenge, so Ed's like, come on, TJ, why you got us throwing these men in here by default, making more enemies and stuff, and we ain't even got to do that. But you already know TJ gonna do what he got to do anyway. So when they was competing, they was going back and forth, and it seems like every time they be going back and forth until they finally end up neck and neck, and then the one person just comes out, because that's what happens. Like, they was both struggling, and then it was just so funny to me because Ashley was going so hard for Tasha, like, come on, like, pulling for her, and meanwhile Nelson is going for Berna, which we all know Ashley just wants Berna out the house so she can get away from Nelson. So you can just see the crazy in Ashley's eye, like, watching that competition. Like, she really wanted Berna out of there. So, and then I'm not even gonna lie, that just looked nerve-wracking. Like, watching them do it was like triggering something in me. That was very irritating. TJ would have just had to not like me, because I would have threw them damn poles and called it a night. So Tasha ended up going home, and I was so sad because I was really rooting for her. I really liked her. I loved her energy, and I must say this is the most representation as far as Black women goes that we've seen in the challenge in a season. So I was definitely pulling for her, and just know anytime any of my sisters are in the elimination, I'm rooting for us off rip. So I was kind of sad to see her go, but before she did call Miss Tori out, honey. She, they had their back and forth. She would not let Tori get a word in, because she just needed to let it be known, you fake Tori. And I don't know, like, that Tori is necessarily, I don't know what to call what Tori did. I would just call it stupid, because I would have just never went in there making no promises. I wouldn't have even made it seem like I could get you what you want. Because if I went in there and you said something that wasn't within my game, I wasn't going to give you that. So why would I even make it seem like it's a possibility? I just wouldn't. And so Tori kind of just had to eat that, because why did you do that? So now Berna gets to choose a partner, and we know she basically has her choice of anyone. And she ends up choosing my baby, CT. Not my baby for real, but y'all know how I feel about CT. She ended up choosing CT. And CT's like, come on now. You see the kid, you know why. And then by default, Jeremiah and Big T become partners. So that was last night's episode. All in all, it was a good episode. Like I said, I'm feeling this season. It's really good so far. Make sure y'all let me know what y'all thought of this week, what y'all thought of Miss Tori. Was y'all glad to see Tasha go, or was y'all wanting to see Miss Berna leave the house? Leave all that in the comments down below. Make sure y'all like this video, and of course subscribe to your girl, and I will see y'all next week.